Are you a beginner videographer looking to start making better videos? If so, you're in the right place, because today we're going to talk about 10 common mistakes that beginner videographers make in hopes that this will help you to avoid making these mistakes yourself. Mistake number 1, poor framing or poor composition. It's one of the first things you have to learn as a filmmaker, how to set your camera in place and how to capture a pleasing image. Now, one tip to help you accomplish this is to turn on the grid lines on your camera and use a concept called the rule of thirds. Now, if you're not familiar with the name, you've probably seen the grid, because essentially what it is 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines intersecting. And the rule tells us that we should try to keep areas of interest on those lines and, when possible, on the intersection points of those lines. Now, that's a starting point and it's a guidance system. It's not a hard and fast rule, but I think it will help set you on your way to success. Mistake number 2, shaky footage. Shaky footage can ruin an otherwise great video, and it can be pretty distracting. So I recommend that you use something to stabilize your camera, whether it's a tripod, a gimbal, or even just simple strategies when going handheld to help you get the most out of your footage. Mistake number 3, lack of focus. A blurry or out of focus image can be incredibly distracting and even painful to watch. If you've had the misfortune of watching such videos where the focus is constantly hunting, shifting, it's not a pleasant sight. So make sure that you take some time to set your focus before you hit record. This could be as simple as double tapping and locking focus on your screen if you're shooting with a smartphone. Mistake number 4, inconsistent exposure. This means that you need to learn how to use your exposure settings on your camera, and also you need to understand how to work with light. Whether it's in an indoor setting or you're shooting outdoors, you need to understand the implications of light. You need to understand dynamic range and the role that plays to make sure that you don't have an image where things are overexposed and the highlights are blown out, or your image is just underexposed and it's hard to see. And as you shoot throughout the day, you have to pay attention to changing lighting conditions to ensure that exposure remains properly set. Mistake number 5, ignoring audio. This is an audio-visual medium, and so while it's important to pay attention to the visual aspect, it's equally as important to pay attention to the audio aspect. When you're starting out, this could be as simple as investing in an external microphone so that you're not just relying on the camera's onboard microphone. Mistake number 6, overusing transitions. Transitions are really popular nowadays, and they do have their place, but you want to make sure that everything you do, you're doing for a reason, and this applies to transitions as well. Mistake number 7, poor storytelling. Now, this doesn't just apply if you have an actual narrative piece that you're creating, but if you have a message you're sharing, you want everything to be on point with that message. So make sure that you plan things out in advance. Understand what shots you need and why you need them so that you keep everything in line with the story or message that you're trying to share. Mistake number 8, not white balancing your camera. This goes along with exposure. Understanding light is important, and understanding that there are different color temperatures of light, different hues of light, can have an important impact in the final product that you're creating. You want to make sure that you understand the settings that your camera has and that you have control over so that you get the most out of the final image that you're capturing in your camera. What you don't want is to be shooting throughout the day and find that different color casts are being introduced into the final image because you weren't paying attention to these settings. Mistake number 9, poor use of camera movement. Now, camera movement can add to your videos and it can enhance your shots when it's used correctly. So this is a mistake that comes in a couple of forms. Sometimes it's the lack of camera movement that's the mistake that's being made, but a lot of times with beginners, it's too much camera movement. Remember, one of the early mistakes we talked about was poor composition. Learning how to set your camera in place and how to get proper composition is where you want to start. You want to master that, or at least develop a level of competence with that before you start introducing different camera movements, because a lot of times one of the most fundamental ways to introduce camera movement is to move between different compositions. So pay attention to when and why you're moving the camera, and make sure that when there's an opportunity to move it, you seize that opportunity, but that you know why that opportunity exists and that you're not moving it without purpose. Mistake number 10, rushing the edit. So you have an idea for a video you want to make. You spend all this time planning and shooting, and then you rush through the edit. Well, the edit a lot of times is where the story really starts to take shape. So don't rush this process. Don't be in too much of a hurry to get things done. Give the process the time and attention it deserves, and I think it will pay off in the end. So there you have it. There's 10 of the most common mistakes that beginner videographers and filmmakers are making. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content coming soon. If you're ready to get started making movies of your own, let me help you learn how to tell your story the way it deserves to be heard.
Thank you for your time.